I am Carthel, chief historian of the Zarkian Empire, and I write these words as both warning and confession. We were wrong about humans. Catastrophically, irredeemably wrong. When our deep space sensors first detected their transmission signals, we dismissed them as primitive broadcasts from yet another species barely crawling out of their technological infancy. Our initial scans showed their planet was divided into competing nation-states, their atmosphere polluted with primitive fuel emissions, and their weapon systems rely primarily on chemical propellants. The Supreme Command designated Earth as a Category 3 acquisition target, suitable for standard conquest protocols. We couldn't have made a graver error. I remember the first time I saw Captain Isabella Rodriguez, not in person. None of us dared get that close in those early days. But through our long-range reconnaissance feeds, she stood on the bridge of what we considered an absurdly primitive spacecraft, the UES Defiant, as our fleet approached Earth's orbital defense line. While other human vessels retreated, her ship remained stationary. Our tactical analysts were puzzled by this seemingly suicidal position. "Attention Zarkian fleet," her transmission cut through our command frequencies with surprising clarity. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earth Forces. You are entering restricted space. Withdraw immediately." She delivered this message with what would become her trademark expression, that mysterious half-smile that would haunt our nightmares for years to come. Supreme Commander Vexthor actually laughed. "These primitives don't even have quantum communications. How adorable." He ordered our vanguard to proceed with the standard intimidation protocol, the destruction of a single enemy vessel to demonstrate our superiority. The Defiant's response changed everything we thought we knew about warfare. As our lead destroyer approached, the supposedly primitive human vessel executed a maneuver our sensors initially registered as a malfunction. The Defiant appeared to fold space around itself, something our scientists had theorized but never successfully achieved. Before our commander could process what was happening, Rodriguez's ship reappeared behind our destroyer and launched what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles. We watched in horror as these primitive weapons passed straight through our advanced shields as if they weren't there. Later analysis would reveal the humans had developed a way to phase shift matter to bypass energy barriers entirely. The destroyer split into 3 pieces before its reactor detonated. That was when Captain Rodriguez's smile widened slightly. Perhaps I should have mentioned, "We don't take kindly to uninvited guests." Her words were calm, almost friendly, but carried an edge that made even our most seasoned warriors uncomfortable. The next 6 hours became known as the Great Humbling in our historical records. The humans had hidden their true technological capabilities behind a facade of primitive broadcasts and seemingly inefficient infrastructure. While we had focused on energy weapons and shield technology, they had perfected gravity manipulation, phase shifting, and what they casually called probability drives. But it wasn't their technology that truly terrified us. It was their adaptability. Every time we developed a countermeasure to one of their weapons, they would switch tactics entirely. Captain Rodriguez seemed to anticipate our strategies before we executed them, leading her small fleet in a dance that decimated our forces while minimizing their own casualties. I remember the moment Supreme Commander Vexthor realized we had walked into a trap. The humans hadn't been broadcasting their transmissions out of technological limitation. They had been baiting us, presenting themselves as an easy target, while preparing a defense that specifically countered our strongest advantages. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" Rodriguez's voice came through again as our flagship's systems began failing. "You assumed that because we fight amongst ourselves, we wouldn't unite against an external threat. But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology." She paused, and I swear I could hear that smile in her voice. "It's our experience with war itself. We've been preparing for something like this for centuries." The battle culminated in what we now call the Rodriguez Maneuver, a tactic so audacious that our military academies still debate whether it was brilliant strategy or sheer madness. She positioned her fleet in a formation that our analysts deemed tactically unsound, practically inviting us to strike at their apparent weakness. When our remaining ships committed to the attack, the humans triggered something that our sensors couldn't even properly describe. The space around their ships seemed to ripple, and our entire attack fleet found itself flying straight into Earth's atmosphere at precisely the wrong angle. The losses we suffered that day weren't just in ships and soldiers. We lost our certainty, our arrogance, and our assumption of superiority. But most importantly, we gained something invaluable: respect for a species that had turned our own prejudices into a weapon against us. As I compile this historical record, I can still see Captain Rodriguez's smile in my mind. We would later learn that this expression, which we found so unnerving, was something humans call a knowing smile, the kind worn by someone who sees several moves ahead in a game you didn't even know you were playing. The battle for Earth's orbit was just the beginning, but it taught us our first crucial lesson about humanity. Never mistake their willingness to talk for an inability to fight. And never, ever, underestimate the danger behind a human smile. The Battle of New Damascus wasn't supposed to happen. After our humiliating defeat in Earth's orbit, Supreme Command had ordered a full strategic retreat. But Commander Vexthor, his pride wounded and his reputation in tatters, made a fatal decision. A lightning strike against Earth's largest military installation in what humans called the Middle East. "Let them smile at this," he transmitted, before leading our remaining fleet into Earth's atmosphere. I remember watching the tactical displays as our ships descended through the cloud cover. New Damascus gleamed beneath us, its advanced architecture a stark contrast to the ancient desert surrounding it. Our intelligence suggested this was humanity's most heavily defended military complex, housing their planetary defense coordination center. Vexthor believed that by destroying it, we could cripple Earth's unified defense capability. The facility's apparent lack of defensive response only fed his overconfidence. No surface-to-air weapons activated. No energy shields appeared. The massive installation sat there, seemingly defenseless, under the scorching sun. Then Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through our command frequency. "I was wondering when you'd take the bait." The desert itself betrayed us. What our sensors had registered as natural sand dunes suddenly shifted, revealing massive underground hangars. The defensive installation had been a decoy. The real New Damascus facility had been beneath our feet the entire time. Hundreds of human fighters erupted from the sand like angry insects from a disturbed hive. But it was what happened next that earned its place in military history. The human vessels didn't engage us directly. Instead, they began flying in complex patterns that seemed almost ceremonial. We would later learn this was something they called electromagnetic weaving, using their ships' energy signatures to create a massive field effect. The results were devastating. Our ship's navigation systems went haywire. Weapons systems targeted phantom signals. Communication channels filled with echoes of human laughter. Psychological warfare at its finest. In the confusion, Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through again, clear as ever. "You know what we learned from studying your technology. You rely too heavily on automation. Sometimes the old ways are best." To our horror, we watched human pilots switch off their ship's guidance systems, flying purely on visual contact and what they called instinct. They dove through our formation with impossible precision, their weapons guided by human hands and eyes rather than computers. Our superior technology had become a weakness. We had forgotten how to fight without it. The battle shifted to the ground when our surviving ships were forced to land. Here, too, humanity had prepared thoroughly. What we thought were simple archaeological sites around the facility turned out to be concealed artillery positions. Ancient ruins housed modern weapon systems. Every grain of sand seemed to hide another surprise. I witnessed Captain Rodriguez coordinate the ground defense from what appeared to be a primitive command center carved into a mountainside. Her tactics defied conventional military logic. She used the desert heat to overheat our thermal sensors, employed local sandstorms to mask troop movements, and somehow turned our own electronic warfare systems against us. The desert teaches patience, she transmitted during a lull in the fighting. It shows us that what survives isn't always what's strongest, But what's most adaptable? That damned smile was evident in her voice again. We've had thousands of years to learn its lessons. The killing blow came at sunset. As our forces regrouped for a final push, the humans detonated what they had buried beneath the sand during centuries of apparent archaeological excavations. The explosion wasn't designed to destroy. It transformed the battlefield into a massive electromagnetic lens, focusing the setting sun's radiation into a beam that overloaded our remaining ship's sensors. In the chaos that followed, I watched Commander Vexthor's flagship sink into what appeared to be quicksand, but was actually a carefully prepared trap of vibrating nanoparticles. His last transmission was cut short by the sound of human boots on metal decking. They had boarded during the confusion. Later, reviewing the battle recordings, I noticed something that chilled me to my core. Throughout the entire engagement, the human civilian population of New Damascus never evacuated. They had known, somehow, that their defenders had the situation well in hand. Such confidence spoke volumes about humanity's preparedness. When Captain Rodriguez personally accepted Vexthor's surrender, she maintained that same knowing smile. "You assume that because we preserve our history, we're bound by it," she told him. "The truth is, we keep the old ways alongside the new ones. Everything humanity has learned, every battle we fought, every war we've survived, it's all just practice for moments like this." The Battle of New Damascus marked the end of our offensive capabilities on Earth, but more importantly, it shattered our understanding of human warfare. We had expected them to fight like us, with standardized tactics and reliable technology. Instead, they fought like their planet's apex predators, adapting, improvising, and combining old and new in ways we never imagined possible. As I record this account, our military academies now require extensive study of Earth's military history, from ancient desert warfare to modern space combat. We finally understood that humanity's scattered conflicts weren't a sign of weakness. They were combat laboratories, each war teaching them something new, each battle adding another tool to their arsenal. And somewhere out there, Captain Rodriguez is still smiling, knowing that we learned these lessons far too late. What happened aboard the Zarkian flagship Eternal Dominion changed the course of the war, and our understanding of humanity forever. After our defeats in orbit and at New Damascus, the Supreme Council finally grasped the true nature of the threat we faced. They dispatched our most advanced warship, carrying experimental weapons we believed would counter human tactics. Fleet Admiral Rickthar, our most decorated commander, arrived with what he called our technological equalizer, a quantum disruption field that would theoretically neutralize humanity's phase-shifting capabilities. The Eternal Dominion was massive, nearly the size of one of Earth's small cities, carrying enough firepower to level continents. "Let's see them smile through this," Rickthar broadcast as the flagship positioned itself above Earth's North American continent. Our intelligence suggested this region housed humanity's primary research facilities. The response came not from Captain Rodriguez this time, but from a gravelly male voice. "This is Commander Jackson of the UES Prometheus. Nice ship you got there. Shame if something happened to it." The casual tone masked something our analysts couldn't quite identify. Anticipation, perhaps. What followed was something our tactical computers initially refused to process. A single human vessel, barely a tenth the size of our flagship, emerged from behind Earth's moon. The Prometheus looked almost primitive compared to the Eternal Dominion, its hull bearing scorch marks and what appeared to be hasty repairs. Rickthar actually laughed. "One ship. Is this humanity's idea of a joke?" "No," Commander Jackson replied. "This is a demonstration." The Prometheus began what looked like a suicide run straight at our flagship. Our gunners opened fire, but the smaller ship moved in ways that defied physics, each maneuver more impossible than the last. It was only later that we understood. They weren't dodging our shots. They were using our weapons' energy signatures to power something they called a probability drive. The real shock came when we activated our quantum disruption field. The Prometheus didn't just resist it. The ship seemed to absorb the energy, its hull beginning to glow with an inner light that our sensors couldn't classify. Commander Jackson's voice came through again, tinged with what I now recognize as satisfaction. "Thanks for the power-up." That's when Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the channel. "Remember what I said about humanity's greatest strength? Here's another lesson. We don't just learn from our victories. We learn even more from our defeats." The Prometheus executed what our scientists still cannot explain. It somehow folded space around itself, while simultaneously creating a temporal recursion loop. When our sensors finally made sense of what was happening, we realized with horror that we were no longer facing one ship. We were facing thousands of temporal copies of the same vessel, each one operating in a slightly different phase of space-time. "Impossible," Rekthar shouted. "This violates every law of physics." "That's humanity's specialty," Rodriguez replied, that smile evident in her voice. "We see laws of physics more as guidelines." The Prometheus and its temporal duplicates began what looked like a coordinated dance around our flagship. Each copy seemed to exist just long enough to absorb a portion of our quantum field's energy, building to something our sensors desperately tried to warn us about. Then Commander Jackson spoke one last time. "You know what happens when you compress thousands of temporal instances into a single moment. Neither do we. Let's find out together." The resulting cascade reaction tore reality itself. The eternal dominion didn't explode. It imploded, collapsed, and then seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Our mighty flagship became a quantum physics experiment gone wrong, a testament to humanity's willingness to push boundaries we didn't even know existed. As our surviving vessels retreated in panic, Captain Rodriguez transmitted one final message. "Your mistake wasn't just underestimating our technology. You underestimated our creativity, our willingness to take risks, and our ability to turn scientific theory into practical weapons. Every time you've attacked us, we've learned, adapted, and grown stronger." The loss of the Eternal Dominion marked more than a military defeat. It demonstrated that humanity had somehow mastered technologies we had deemed theoretically impossible. They hadn't just caught up to our level of advancement. They had taken paths of development we never imagined. Post-battle analysis revealed the truth behind the Prometheus's capabilities. Humans hadn't developed these technologies in isolation. They had been studying our attacks, analyzing our weapons, and finding ways to turn our own advanced science against us. Every engagement hadn't just been a battle. It had been a data-gathering opportunity for their scientists. That day, we learned the true price of underestimating humanity. It wasn't just the loss of our flagship or the deaths of our soldiers. It was the realization that every defeat made them stronger, every attack taught them more, and every moment of conflict brought them closer to mastering technologies that we, in our arrogance, had never dared to explore. And somewhere out there, Captain Rodriguez was still smiling, knowing that the next time we met, humanity would have even more surprises waiting for us. The aftermath of the Eternal Dominion's destruction brought something unprecedented. A ceasefire, not out of mercy, but necessity. Both sides needed to understand what had happened, and more importantly, why it had happened. I was chosen as part of the diplomatic delegation. My role as historian deemed crucial for documenting this turning point. The meeting took place in a facility called the Geneva Convention Center, a place humans had traditionally used for peace talks. Captain Rodriguez was there, along with Commander Jackson and other human military leaders. But it was the presence of their scientists that truly captured our attention. Dr. Reeves, their lead quantum physicist, explained how they had achieved what we thought impossible. "We didn't break the laws of physics," she said with that distinctly human expression of amusement. "We just found the loopholes." The humans shared their research data freely, almost too freely. It was Commander Jackson who explained why. "You're going to want to understand this, because what happened to the Eternal Dominion, that was just the prototype." Their openness wasn't mercy, it was another strategy. By showing us exactly how outmatched we were, They ensured we would think very carefully before considering future aggression. But something else happened during these meetings, something none of us expected. We began to understand. Captain Rodriguez took me on a tour of their training facilities. I watched human soldiers practicing with both advanced quantum weapons and primitive projectile firearms. Technology can fail, she explained. The warrior cannot. But it was a visit to a human school that truly opened my eyes. Children, they're young, were being taught not just facts and figures, but how to question, how to challenge assumptions, how to think in ways that defied conventional logic. This, Rodriguez said, her eternal smile softening, this is our real weapon. As I compile this final record, 10 Earth years have passed since our first disastrous attempt to conquer humanity. The galactic landscape has changed dramatically. Earth is no longer seen as a primitive backwater, but as a central hub of innovation and advancement. The human approach to knowledge and warfare has revolutionized our own society. Their educational methods have been adopted across our worlds. Their military academies now host exchange programs with our own. Their technology, born from desperate innovation during our conflict, has transformed transportation, communication, and medicine throughout known space. But perhaps the most profound change has been in our understanding of strength. We had always equated it with superiority. Having the biggest ships, the most advanced weapons, the most efficient tactics. Humanity showed us that true strength lies in adaptability, in the willingness to learn from failure, in the ability to smile in the face of overwhelming odds and find solutions where none should exist. Captain Rodriguez still serves as Earth's primary military liaison to our empire. Her smile hasn't changed, but my understanding of it has. It's not just confidence or knowing superiority. It's an expression of humanity's most remarkable trait, their absolute certainty that they can overcome any challenge, solve any problem, find a way through any obstacle. Last week, I asked her directly about that smile during one of our now regular diplomatic meetings. Her answer encapsulates everything I've learned about humans. We smile because we know something you're just beginning to understand. The universe isn't divided into the strong and the weak, the advanced and the primitive. It's divided into those who believe in limitations and those who refuse to accept them. She leaned forward, that familiar expression playing across her face. And humanity, we've never been very good at accepting limitations. Today, as I submit this record to our Imperial Archives, I do so with a recommendation that it be required reading for every Zarkian citizen, not just as a historical account of our greatest military defeat, but as a testament to the danger of assumption and the price of arrogance. The humans have a saying, "The most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate." But they taught us something even more important. Sometimes your most dangerous enemy can become your most valuable teacher. It's a promise. Archive note. This document has been classified as essential learning by order of the Supreme Council. All military and diplomatic personnel are required to study it before any interaction with Earth or its colonies. Additional note. The former Supreme Commander Vexthor, now serving as our ambassador to Earth, has added his own observation. If you see a human smile during negotiations, surrender immediately. It will save everyone a lot of time.